Great. Thank you for your time, Hannah. Thank you for joining us for DataCube's killer questions. Really appreciate your time. So let's jump in with the first question. How does your role involve data, Hannah?
So I guess there's probably two angles that we can look at this from. So we've got the advice that we give to our clients. So as I sit within the Ashford's tech team and have a huge focus on data protection, data and also AI are both kind of big, a huge part of what we advise clients on. We receive lots of queries in the kind of data and AI space. But when I talk about data, I probably look at it more from a personal data perspective rather than data in its broader sense. And then also, I guess the other angle is how do we as a firm use data and AI? Um, and that's a really interesting one because I think I was sort of thinking this through, and I think AI obviously isn't something new. So a lot of our back end functions will incorporate AI technology.
Yeah.
But what the new hype around is very much generative AI. And that's something that as a regulated law firm, we have to be much more careful about than other businesses, I think. So when I look at us as a firm, we're not readily using generative AI. We don't put client data into it. We don't put confidential information into it. We're just probably that little bit more kind of measured in our use of that generative AI. But yeah, it's all, definitely something we're thinking about. And because we're advising on those areas for our clients, obviously it's something that we've constantly got on our radar and we're thinking about how we can utilize those technologies ourselves as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Hannah. And yeah, it's really great that you bring a legal perspective to this because we're normally talking to data practitioners and data leaders. So it's great to get your insight. And the next two questions really will be great to get your insight. What do you see as the biggest data challenges for organizations in 2024?
So I think coming at this question from the perspective of data protection compliance, which is sort of a huge part of my day-to-day role at Ashford, is advising on those issues. And I think for businesses, really utilizing new technologies, so generative AI being a really relevant example, but being able to utilize those within the parameters of data protection compliance, I think is going to be a big challenge.
Mm.
So looking at generative AI, obviously you've got the data that the AI model is trained on. You've got, once that AI model is deployed in a live environment, you've got input prompts that people will be using, which may or may not contain personal data. And then you've also got the output data, which again may or may not contain personal data, and also may or may not contain inaccurate information about a person. So obviously there's lots of risks there, potential risks of harm to an individual if the AI creates inaccurate information about them. And that full life cycle, right through from training the model to what it's creating and remaining responsible for it, is something I think businesses need to be very aware of, and trying to navigate compliance with data protection laws whilst making the most of those new technologies, I think will be something that people just have to sort of keep in mind. And also to help with that, the ICO, which is the UK's privacy regulator, has actually published or is launching a consultation on use of generative AI and compliance with data protection laws. So there's lots of material out there to help organizations, but I think that's something where when I'm looking at what our clients are doing and what businesses are doing, it is definitely an area of challenge.
So, follow-up question, opposite question. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for organizations in 2024?
So again, coming at this question from the data protection compliance angle, because it's sort of a lot of, a big part of what I do. I actually think 2024 is going to be a really pivotal year for data protection. Probably not as pivotal as 2018, which is when the GDPR came into force, but I think still a really important year, because what I see when I look forward this year is really data protection compliance kind of moving in a way that's really supporting innovation. So ICO, the UK's privacy regulator, is committed to publishing guidance, codes of practice to really help organisations utilise new technologies whilst remaining compliant with data protection law. So I think that's something that's quite high up on the agenda now. So it's really kind of acknowledging that we need that support to help businesses navigate those new technologies. but also in the next couple of months, we're expecting the Data Protection and Digital Information Bill to be published in sort of final text, and that will reform UK data protection law. So the aim of that reform is to try and cut some of the compliance burden for businesses. And I think actually it's been pitched as the UK unlocking its post-Brexit opportunity. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the effect of that is, whether businesses really do feel the benefit of that, or actually whether in practice it doesn't, make a huge difference. But I think when we look forward at what the kind of the key objectives are this year and really looking at how innovation is really high on the agenda, I think, huge opportunity this year for data protection compliance to move in the way that businesses need it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really refreshing for you to be talking about, regulation and compliance in such a positive and inspiring way, right? Because it can often be seen as a blocker. So,
Yes.
you talking about it as being an enabler is really, really inspiring. So thank you, Hannah. And last question, perhaps the most important one, have you got a data or AI related joke for us?
I do. So what did the data say when it was drowning?
I I don't know, Hannah. What did the data say when it was drowning?
I'm thinking.
Oh my goodness. Do you know that was a split second and I had to kind of go sinking, la la. But I caught up with you. Awesome, Hannah. Thank you so much. Brilliant joke to end on. Really appreciate your legal perspective on data for our Data Cubes killer questions. So thank you ever so much for your time.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me.